When you sit down to be creative, your subconscious mind is your own worst enemy. Now, it might not always be your own worst enemy, but certainly when I'm sitting down to do something creative that is valuable to me, all of the questions in my subconscious mind start popping up about being successful, about being safe, about being accepted. And because it doesn't want to deal with any of those negative consequences of the process not working out, it starts to distract me and distract me and distract me. So last week, I was sitting down to work on a creative task, something that I needed to get done and I needed to spend a lot of the time and attention on. And as I was sitting down to do it, I actually created a new tiny little tapping process to help me to stay focused in what I was doing. It absolutely transformed my resource state. And as I was sitting there, it was one of the most productive sessions I've had in a really long time. And I can't wait to share that tool with you right now. This is Monterastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 629, originally aired September 19th, 2024. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to join me. I'm glad that you're spending a little time with me today. So when it comes to being productive, our resource state dramatically impacts what is going to happen. And when I say my resource state, I'm talking about the energy that I have, the way I feel physically in my body, the amount of focus that I have access to. And I'm sure you know what it's like to be really ready to learn or to do something complicated or work on something creative and a resource state where you're not in that particular case. And so I love using tapping to do that, but because of the value of the task that I had to do last week, I was in the process of redeveloping one of my core offerings, my major program for the most of my students. And I need to reorganize the content in a way that is going to make it easier for me to teach. It's going to make it easier for my students to learn. It's going to be easier for them to figure out what's going on. So it's something that it's not just passing, but something I really needed to get right. And so what I did in the process of doing that is I set myself up for success and added something absolutely brand new, which was a version of tapping that I hadn't tried before. Now, if you are new to tapping and have no idea what I'm talking about, tapping is a very simple tool where you are actually physically tapping on your body, but it creates amazing transformations. It transforms your resource state. It helps you to rewrite limiting beliefs. It makes it so much easier for you to be active and productive. It is something that I use every single day myself. I use it with my clients every single time I sit down with them. If you are new to tapping and have no idea what tapping is, all you need to do is go to learntotap.com. I have a great little video there that will explain everything for you, learntotap.com, or all you need to do is click the little red arrow in the upper right-hand corner and it will take you to the website so you can learn right away. So because of the value of this particular creative task, I did everything in my power to set myself up for success because I know that different conditions are going to make it easier and easier for me to be productive. So the first thing I did is I created the amount of time that I was going to be working on the task. For me, creativity is a limited resource. And you know what it's like to be staring at something at a certain amount of time, like your eyes start to cross and you can't even read the words on the screen if you're writing something, or you can't stay focused and you're being distracted all over the place if you're writing something down. And so for me, I know that my creative juices last somewhere between 45 and 90 minutes. Like after 90 minutes, I'm just wore out. Now I can come back later in the day, but it's just no use for me to keep pushing because I no longer have what is there. So the first thing I did is I created the amount of time that I was going to use. The second thing I did is I went to a third space. Now, a third space is not where you live and it's not where you work, but a third space. I find that when I am doing creative tasks, I find not being in my regular environment and not being around my stuff makes me less distracted, but also makes me feel clearer. So for me, in my neighborhood, it's coffee shops or wine bars. Or in this particular case, I actually went to a hotel lobby. There's a hotel in my neighborhood that has this little work area because it's New York and the hotel rooms are so small, they don't have desks inside of them. So they actually have a special work area that's kind of up above on a balcony on the second floor. And so I'll go over there and I'll work. So I moved to a place that was going to set me up for more success. Third thing I did is I put my phone in airplane mode, so there was absolutely no distractions. I turned off the notifications on my computer so I could be dedicated to what was in front of me. The fourth thing I did is I found one of my great creativity playlists. I find when I am being creative, it's useful for there to be some music just because it kind of distracts my mind a little bit. But it can't be music that I know the words to. It can't be things that I want to sing along to because then the music becomes distracting. So I actually have a number of playlists that are almost all movie scores, which are just instrumental music. So that is a distraction and it's a background and it blocks out what is going on, but the music itself is not a distraction. So I did my normal stuff. I was ready to go. I got somewhere else. I set the amount of time. I turned off the distractions. The music was grooving. I was ready to go. And I still felt really, really unsettled in my body. And like I mentioned at the top, sometimes when I sit down to do something creative, there is an obvious concern. I'm going to put this out there and it's going to be judged. I'm going to create something and people are going to say no to me. I'm going to invest a bunch of time in this and it's not going to be very good. In this particular case, there wasn't a clear story or resistance. I just knew I wasn't completely grounded in that particular moment. I was just unsettled. So what I did was I thought, okay, how can I use tapping just to put myself back in my body? And a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, I shared with you how when I was being distracted during my day and picking up my phone or going into a social media app on my computer, what I did was I tapped for 1 minute. So I thought, what would happen if I did that in a more structured way? So instead of waiting for the distraction to come up, I put myself back in my body in a more well-resourced way. And so what I did was on my notebook, because I'm always taking notes by hand in addition to working on my computer, in my notebook in the upper right-hand corner, what I did is I just made 6 little circles going down the list. And then what I did is I drew a line between circle number 3 and circle number 4. So now I have these 6 little circles. So what I did was I went to my timer, I set my timer for 1 minute, and I did 1 minute of tapping. And just tapped and just breathed and just noticed, wasn't saying any phrases, wasn't tuning into anything specific. And then once my watch vibrated, I stopped tapping, I set my watch for 15 minutes, and then I did 15 minutes of work. And then when the watch buzzed again at the end of 15 minutes, I went to that first circle and I just checked off that first little circle and I repeated the process. I set my timer for 1 minute. I tapped for 1 minute. I set my timer for 15 minutes. I worked for 15 minutes. Timer went off. I crossed off the second little box. And then I did it a third time. I set the timer for 1 minute. I tapped for 1 minute. I set the timer for 15 minutes. I worked for 15 minutes. Timer went off. This time when I crossed off the third one, there's that little line between the third and fourth circle. So I've been working for 45 minutes at this point, and I knew that even though the tapping was useful, I am very kinesthetic and I need to move my body. So I got up and I did a minute of the Eden Energy cross crawl, where I'm up and I'm moving my whole body, and then I stretched a little bit. Again, timer went off after 1 minute, sat back down, set the timer for 1 minute, tapped for 1 minute, set the timer for 15 minutes, worked for 15 minutes, crossed off the fourth circle and worked my way through it. The next thing I knew, it was 90 minutes later. The next thing I knew, I had gotten so much further than I thought I was going to get on this particular process. Now, the task was not done. It didn't have to be completely done on that Thursday. And even though I had been using these tools to reset my resources, at that point, I was done with that particular creative task. So it made it super, super easy. Now, when I sat down to do this, I had a concern because I'm like, well, I'm going to have 15 minutes. I'm going to stop. I'm going to tap. Well, what happens if I'm in the middle of a really good idea? But I decided because it was an experiment, I was just going to do what my timers said. And so if the timer went off, I gave myself permission to finish the sentence or finish the thought that I was working on. And then I stopped and I immediately went to the tapping. Because I wanted to make sure I was never allowing my resource state to diminish so much it would be easy for me to be distracted. So it's kind of like, oh, tank's getting full, let's refill it. Even though I'm in the middle of something useful, I'm going to do what is happening right in front of me right now so that later it's not harder for me. And I was really surprised. It didn't actually distract me in any way at all. When I got back to work, it wasn't like I was lost. It wasn't like I thought my train of thought. I was able to be productive with what was in front of me. Now, if you want to try this out on your own, you don't have to do it exactly the way I did it. For me, it was an experiment. I was doing 90 minutes, 20 minutes or 15 minutes seemed a natural break between those particular things. And because I knew I was in a more distracted state, tapping more frequently was going to be useful for me. So here's some simple changes that you can make if you're going to apply this for yourself. First, you can change the container that your little creative time is going to be in. It doesn't have to be 90 minutes. It can be 30, it can be 45, it can be an hour, it can be whatever length makes the most sense for you. For me, like I said, 45 to 90 is what I do best. 60 to 75 is the sweet spot. So I just know that about myself. The second thing that you can change is you can change the interval length. You don't have to do it every 15 minutes. When I am working through my day and I'm just working on stuff that's in front of me, typically I try and interrupt myself every 30 to 45 minutes to do something that is active, just so I'm putting myself back in my body. So depending on the day and what is going on, those intervals might move. Choose the interval that makes the most sense for you. Number 3 is you can change the amount of time that you tap. For me, I find 60 seconds generally puts me back in my body, but you might not be that way. You might need more tapping, you might need less tapping, or you might decide today, because of the value of the task or because of what is going on inside of my system, I'm going to do it for 90 seconds or 2 minutes. And finally, you don't have to tap. You can do anything that you want that works for you to put yourself back in your body in a better resource state. Tapping works great for me because it doesn't require any thought. Like literally, my fingers do the walking. Like the old Yellow Pages ad, once I start going, I can just hit my timer. I know it's going to work for me. Choose the resource that works the best for you. So that's it. It's really that simple. I just drew some circles on my piece of paper. I set my timer. I set the rules. I did what I needed to do, and it was super, super productive. Give it a try. Let me know exactly how it works. You can drop me a note and let me know what your experience was, what worked, what didn't, how you evolved it. I always love hearing from experiences from others as they are navigating this. Now, if you know someone in your life who would appreciate a little reframe, a little tool, a little something to help them to navigate their day a little better as well, please be our ambassador, pass it along. We always joke about the fact that our marketing budget is your word of mouth. So if you know someone in your life who could really use something like this, please pass this along. Don't spam your inbox, but you might know 1 or 2 people who would really appreciate something like this today. And like we always say, sending a resource like this to someone in your life is going to make their life better, even if they don't listen to what I'm talking about here, even if they never click the link, simply because you've reached out and said, hey, I'm thinking of you today. I think this might make your day a little bit better. Will make their day better because they know you are thinking of them. Yes, that sounds super, super cheesy. And yes, it is true. On the screen right now, you can see a playlist of all the podcasts and all the great instruction that we have. Click on that. See some more of the instruction. I look forward to talking with you again real soon. Bye-bye.